Yes, everyone. I'm Daily, and we are back with another video today. Now, today's one should be, rather informative one, quite an interesting one, I think, because hasn't really been done too often. Surprisingly, this one's been quite hard to find even on the internet. There's been quite some disparity in terms of what means what, etc. And there's not much on YouTube. So yeah, today's video is going to be about attributes and what they actually mean. Now, of course, we all play FIFA, FC, whatever you want to call it. We've all been playing for I don't know how many years, but we all play FIFA. We all know what attributes are, I hope. Of course, attributes are responsible for determining a player's quality, so they're out of 99, and they're a more reliable indicator as to the actual quality of a player as opposed to just looking at the overall rating. Because the weights they use to calculate the overall ratings, they can be quite interesting, as you can see some of the controversial overall ratings we've had over the years. So yeah, looking at the actual attributes are definitely a more reliable way to see the actual quality and how your player will play in game. And also, if you play career mode, this also factors in, position conversions and changes. You look at certain attributes that are high, and okay, cool, this player needs to change position and his overall go up. So yeah, this one, as I said, hasn't really been done too often, surprisingly, online. There's not much online, so I've been thinking this for years, but I was thinking, now's time, why don't I do this myself? So yeah, we're going to be going through all the attributes and what they actually mean, the weights they have on the category, etc. So of course, attributes are separated into three main categories: physical, mental, and technical. Technical is also called skill, and this is one thing that's quite frustrating. Obviously, currently merchant myself, it's not uniform. So for example, the physical, mental, and technical, they're ordered the same on the Squad Hub, Youth Academy, and Team Management, but they're ordered slightly differently on the Transfer Hub, Team Stats, and Scout Report. It's ever so slightly, and it's also the same on Search Players. It's just annoying. Why couldn't it be the exact same so you can compare exactly? It's more to do with, alphabetical ordering, but yeah, it's just me being a bit extra. But yeah, also, they're virtually the same, as I said, just alphabetical, and I don't know why, again, why is technical sometimes called skill? Why? It's just these little things like, why have they done this? Yeah, it's only called skill on two menus, but still, on the team management and team stats, it's called skill. Everything else is called technical. But why? I don't know whose idea that was, and they haven't noticed it? Was it on purpose? I don't know. But yeah, these are some of the things I haven't really been able to get an answer for. For the vast majority, I've got an answer. So of course, the first thing we're going to start with is the goalkeeper attributes. Of course, the goalkeeper attributes, they're all technical attributes except speed. Speed is a physical attribute. But yeah, we're going to start off with the goalkeeper attributes. So yeah, let's get into this. Now, goalkeeper attributes are separated into 6 categories of goalkeeper diving, goalkeeper handling, goalkeeper kicking, goalkeeper reflexes, goalkeeper speed, and goalkeeper positioning. Now, of course, these categories except speed are literally the names that they say. So goalkeeper diving only encompasses diving. So yeah, you get the gist. So of course, we're going to start with diving. Of course, diving is 100% weight of diving because it's the only attribute that counts. And this is the ability to make a save whilst moving or jumping or diving through the air. So of course, taller players can utilize this more because of course they're taller, longer limbs, etc. So the further they reach, it'll be more effective. So that's diving. Of course, handling, same thing, 100% handling is how cleanly goalkeepers can catch balls and don't misquote that. and if the keeper can hold on to the ball. So yeah, just how well they can use their hands. And of course, the frequency of catching balls rather than parrying is also a factor here, and whether or not the ball is held onto. It's quite a significant one because sometimes you get keepers that just they parry the ball randomly when they should keep the ball, hold it firm. So it's quite a significant one. Next one is goalkeeper kicking. Again, 100% kicking, that category, and this is the length and accuracy of goal kicks. So this is from the hands and on the ground, and of course the length and accuracy of throws as well is partially determined here, having the goalkeeper throwing trait. That's what weighs more here. So yeah, just a little one for you because some people probably don't know that. But yeah, next one we have is goalkeeper reflexes. Again, 100% reflexes, and this is the agility when making a save. So this determines how quickly goalkeepers react to shots on target. So a low stat equals, you move later, or, even missing the ball entirely. So of course, the higher the better. It's the same for everything. Next one we have is goalkeeper speed. Again, 100% speed. And this is the ability to close down the opposition in one-on-ones. So this does actually encompass pace. So it's acceleration and sprint speed. So the actual stats of acceleration and sprint speed that's what is factored in here. So it's not just its own goalkeeper thing, it's an actual, yeah. So of course, the importance of, things like the offside trap and all these things are factored in here. Yeah. Next one we have is goalkeeper positioning, which is 100% positioning, of course. And this is the ability to position correctly when saving shots. And this, of course, affects how goalkeepers react to crosses as well. So yeah, just make sure you're in the right position. Again, it's of course it's important. You want to be in the right position. But yeah, those are the goalkeeping stats. The next thing we're going to go on to is the outfield attributes. This is the, you know, probably the one you guys have all been waiting for. But yeah, let's get into this. Yes, the first one we're going to be discussing is pace. Arguably the most important attribute we have in the game, and it's been like this for the past 10, 15, probably 20 years. Probably since before I was born. Yes, I'm not that old. But yeah, pace of course is very, very fundamental. It's even important in goalkeeping. So yes, it's important to every position essentially. You know, of course, especially, you know, your attacking players, wingers, fullbacks, etc. It's very, very important. Even centre backs, you know. But yeah, so of course, pace. The two attributes here are sprint speed and acceleration. And now you'd be interested to know sprint speed actually counts as 55% of the pace attribute and acceleration is 45%. So sprint speed is actually a bit more important. Obviously it's very even, 55 to 45 is virtually the same, but you know, sprint speed is just a bit more significant, so just bear that in mind. Oh yeah, just to mention, of course, you know, both acceleration and sprint speed are, of course, physical attributes. So, of course, sprint speed is how fast a player is at their top speed. Next thing, of course, is acceleration, which I said accounts for 45% weight of pace. Now, this is, you know, the change / the gain in speed. So, of course, high acceleration equals, you know, shorter time needed to reach your maximum speed. So, how quickly you can reach your maximum speed. So, of course, it needs to be considered that alongside sprint speed, high acceleration and low sprint speed means that sprint, you know, evolves well, but your max speed is low. So essentially, if your maximum speed is low, having high acceleration is kind of pointless. You know, of course, you know, it does help, but it's not as beneficial as opposed to having, you know, minimum solid speed, relatively high speed, and relatively high acceleration, you know, as opposed to high acceleration, low sprint speed. But of course, you know, conversely, a player with high sprint speed but low acceleration is fast, but it takes them, you know, a longer time to reach that speed. And this is kind of the case usually with, you know, your taller players. You know, they'll have high sprint speed, but the acceleration is not as high, you know, just due to, you know, just physics and the human anatomy, etc. You know, that's more for a science video. This is not for the channel. But yeah, that's basically the pace. And now we'll go on to the next category, which is shooting. But yeah, now of course we're on to shooting now, and yes, this encompasses 6 attributes, of course: finishing, attacking position, shots power, long shots, penalties, and volleys. So of course, we're going to start with the most important and the highest weight attribute, which is finishing. So finishing accounts for 45% of shooting. Finishing is a technical attribute, and this is basically the accuracy of shots with your feet inside the penalty area. So this does not influence headers or finishes from outside the area. So this is just in the penalty area, in the 18-yard box, whatever you want to call it. Yes, and of course, you know, the higher finishing, you know, your shots will be on targets, the higher the accuracy, and yes, this doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to beat the keeper every time, but higher finishing means you'll hit the target more often. Think of this as a magnetism to the goal. So yeah, think of this force as, you know, a worse finisher, instead of, you know, maybe going on target, it will veer away from the goal. A better finisher, maybe as opposed to hitting the post, it will go more towards just squeezing into the corner. These such things, that's what high finishing brings. Our next thing we have is attack positioning. This is a mental attribute, and it actually only accounts for 5% of shooting. So technically it's not that important, but it's still useful. You know, it's still useful, you know. So of course, this is the ability to take up good spaces and good spots on the field in the game. So highest that equals, you know, the likelihood of a player making enough space to receive the ball in a dangerous area. It's like intelligence, really. You know, they get those intelligence players, you know, your Ramdoiters, your, you know, Thomas Willers, etc. Those kind of players are intelligent, and just similar players. You know, I think it's an important one. Of course, it doesn't hold that much weight, but it's a nice attribute to have. And of course, it deals with the ability to spot open space and move into good positions that offer an attacking advantage. One must consider it doesn't actually impact the positions you take up for, you know, set pieces, so corners, free kicks, etc. So just bear that in mind. You know, don't be thinking just because he has high attack position he's going to take these slick positions in corners and free kicks. No, it doesn't impact that. So yeah, just note that. Yeah. Now the next one, of course, is shot power. Of course, this is kind of self-explanatory. It accounts for 20% of shooting. It is a technical attribute, and it's just how hard the player can hit the ball. You know, when shooting, of course, and it's the amount of power a player can put into a shot whilst keeping it accurate. So, you know, it's not just blasting. I mean, technically it kind of is, but you know, it's also, you know, accuracy should play a part into it, and just affects how, you know, of course, power is, you know, how fast the ball will travel when struck from a distance. Also, bear this in mind, the longer you hold the shoot button, the more likely the player is to miss. So if you hold, I don't know, circle, B, etc., whatever console you're on, and you hold it to the end, he's not as likely to score. accuracy needs to be factored in, and just bear that in mind. Don't just go holding B to the end thinking, yeah, I'm going to blast, it's going to go in now. And you need to time it. But yeah. Of course, the next one we have now, long shots. Long shots account for 20% of shooting, and long shots are a technical attribute, and long shots are basically the accuracy of shots outside the penalty area. So how finishing was inside the penalty area, this is outside the penalty area. So of course this is good for midfielders, specifically your attacking midfielders, maybe centre mid as well. It's a nice attribute to have. Self-explanatory. Next one we have penalties. These actually account for 20% of shooting. So I'm surprised that high. And this is a technical attribute, of course, and it's accuracy of shots inside the penalty area, of course. And yeah, so it may not be known, but it's also important not only for penalties, but for any other shot inside the box. So it kind of plays into finishing. So this is probably why it counts for 20%, which is kind of misleading. A lot of people would not know that penalties actually subtly impact finishing. So just bear that in mind. So if you're doing career modes and you want to maximize your players' finishing, think about the penalties. If you're wondering why a guy, same finishing, and another guy's got the exact same finishing, they're not scoring at the same rate, obviously there are other factors that will impact this, but have a look at the penalties. Now, final one, and the joint least or lowest weight for shooting volleys. Volleys, of course, technical attributes, and it only accounts for 5% of shooting. So, of course, this is the accuracy and shot power of volleys at goal. So it affects the technique and accuracy of shots taken whilst the ball is in the air. So just bear this in mind, technique and accuracy. This tends to be coupled with balance, and it's responsible for some very good goals, of course. Yeah. But yeah, that is shooting. Now the next one, of course, we're going to be going on to is passing. Now, of course, next one we're going to be discussing is passing. Now this, of course, important attribute, and it consists of 6 attributes, and these are vision, crossing, free kick accuracy, long pass, short pass, and curve. Now, of course, the first one we're going to be discussing is vision. This is a mental attribute, and it counts for 20% of passing, so it's quite important. Well, yeah, no, it's very important, So, of course, vision is the awareness of the position of those around you, so teammates and opponents. So this impacts the probability of successful long passes. So vision is very important when considering long passing. Not as much short passing, so yeah, just, pair it with long passing essentially. So, of course, the better vision means that a player will have a wider view to locate teammates, and therefore the more significant probability of successful long passes. So it doesn't actually matter how high a player's long passing stat is if the vision isn't good. So you can have 99 long passing. If your vision isn't good, the long pass aren't going to be that good. So yeah, vision is actually very important when you actually think of it like that. And the next one is crossing, which accounts, this is a technical attribute, and it accounts for 20% of passing. So this is how accurate the player's crosses are. And of course, yeah, this is crossing on the ball when running and taking free kicks, etc., set pieces. Well, specifically free kicks. It's not as important for corners, but yeah, it's more free kicks. So, of course, it's good for players who play through the wings, but also influences free kick set pieces and determines how easy it is to get the ball into the box in the first place. Our next one we have is free kick accuracy. This is kind of self-explanatory. This is a technical attribute, and it only accounts for 5% of passing, which is kind of understandable. It's free kicks. It's not, unless you pass your free kicks, or I guess somewhat crossing when that's more to do with crossing. Yeah, 5%. And of course, the higher value means high accuracy of a direct free kick on goal. So this is direct free kicks on goal. This isn't to do with, crossing, etc. It's direct free kicks on goal. And also having high curve does help, maximize the effectiveness of free kicks. Next one we have is long passing, which accounts for 15% of passing. So of course, remember I said this links with vision. So cumulatively, they actually account for 35%. But yeah, long passing is a technical attribute that accounts for 15%. And it's how well a player performs a long pass in the air. So this is to do with passes in the air. And it doesn't affect ground passes. So please bear this in mind. I don't think FIFA, EA, FC, etc., they don't make this clear enough. Long passing is to do with passes in the air. So yes. And it also determines the speed of the pass. So the accuracy and the speed. So of course, higher equals quicker and more accurate passes. So yes, please bear this in mind. Now, the next one we have is short passing. Again, a technical attribute, which accounts for 35% of passing. So yes, so cumulatively 35%. Yeah. So of course, this is how well a player performs a short pass on the ground. Short pass on the ground, and determines the accuracy and speed of passes on the ground over a short distance. So yes, please bear this in mind, people. Bear this in mind. And the last attribute we have, of course, is curve. Curve is another technical attribute that only accounts for 5% of passing. So it's a lowly weighted, which is kind of understandable. So this is the ability to curl the ball when passing and shooting. So this is very good for set pieces, so set piece takers, and of course curling, free kicks, corners, etc. And of course these things can be hard to defend against if you know what you're doing. So yes, bear this in mind. I'd say it's more to do with passing and shooting, but it counts for both. So yes, bear this in mind. It's kind of frustrating. That's another thing I don't think EA, FC, etc., FIFA they don't make this clear enough. But yeah. Now the next attribute we're going to be discussing is dribbling. Now this one, there's some very interesting finds here. So yeah, please do continue to watch and listen. Keep your ears peeled. Listen, because there's some interesting things here that I was like, okay, interesting, and I'm sure a decent amount of you will be surprised. So yes, of course, another 6 attributes in agility, balance, reactions, composure, ball control, and dribbling. So of course, we're going to start off with agility. This is a physical attribute that accounts for 10% of dribbling, and this is how agile a player is whilst moving or turning. So how fast or how quickly or graceful a player can control the ball, essentially, when they're turning. So of course, players with high agility can perform acrobatic shots or clearances as well. And of course, it's a stat to look at if you like players who like running with the ball. So of course, if you like players that like dribbling, running, etc., of course, consider agility. Now, the next one we have is balance. Well, surprisingly, the way this gets, not hyped up, but the way this gets, people speak about this, I'm surprised it counts for this low of a weight, but it's balance. So of course, balance is another physical attribute, and it actually only accounts for 5% of dribbling, which is interesting. So less than agility. So of course, balance is the ability to maintain stability after a physical challenge. So of course, it influences dribbling and more generally how responsive a player feels. So if a player has high agility and high balance, they'll move fluidly with the ball and get in and out of tight spots. So those nifty players, those Messi's, Hazards, those kind of, I'm not trying to, guess Hazard because he tells me, but you know what I mean, Messi's, players that are very good at dribbling that just somehow come out of those very tight spaces where you're kind of left wild. Yeah, if you've got high agility and high balance, these are kind of dribbles you'll be making. So this is something to bear in mind. So those players you have, for example, that have let's say 95 plus pace, for example. Some of these players can feel kind of sluggish and a bit unresponsive if they have low agility and balance, especially with the taller players that are just pace merchants. Their balance and agility aren't going to be as good compared to your shorter players with lower centers of gravity. So yeah, that's why some of your players, they're quick, 95 pace, 95 acceleration, sprint speed, but they don't feel as responsive and as nifty because their agility and balance is not as high. So this is the significance of balance and agility. Of course, we're focusing on balance, but yeah, just bear that in mind. The next one we have, this is a shock, is reactions. So reactions, another physical attribute, actually accounts for 0% of dribbling, which is, it's very interesting. It's not a shock because reactions are kind of to do with everything, reacting to tackles, reacting to everything, but for 0%, okay. And I don't know how EA really categorize these things, but whatever. So of course, reactions are how quickly a player responds to a situation happening around them. So it's self-explanatory. So it actually has nothing to do with the player's speed. So a player can be fast, but have slow reactions. So yeah, it's the time between the moment a player sees where the ball is and the moment he gets in position to receive it. So for example, he sees the ball's there and he gets into the correct position to receive it. Those are reactions. Players with slow reactions will do this slowly. Players with quick reactions or high reactions will do this quickly, of course. And of course, it impacts all players. So yeah, this impacts all. So whether the CPU, computer controlling the player, or you are. So yeah, just bear this in mind. It's not just you are pressing the button to react. It also is the computer how quickly a player will react naturally. So yes, those rebound shots, yeah. Low reaction players are not going to be getting rebound shots. Same as keepers. He makes a save and he's on the ground. Player with low reactions will stay in the ground for longer. Quick reactions will get up very quickly. Rebound shots, high rebounds will react quickly, try and topo it, tap it in, etc. Tap in merchants. Shut up. Now, of course, the next thing we have is this is somewhat of an enigma in FIFA EA Sports world. This province is composure. Now, this is a mental attribute. This accounts for 0%. Again, I feel like this one also should have its own category, Composure. It comes into everything, shooting, passing, dribbling, whatever. So I don't know why they put it in dribbling, but yes, it's in dribbling. So of course, Composure actually determines at what distance the player with the ball starts feeling the pressure from the opponent. So it affects the chances of the player making an error when they're shooting, passing, or crossing. So technically, it's not that much to do with dribbling. This one is very, very, like, there's no set rules for Composure. It's very, very difficult to determine Composure. But yes, it impacts the likelihood of error when you're under pressure from an opponent when you're shooting, passing, and crossing. So of course, a higher value means a better performance when you're under pressure from an opponent. Lower value means worse performance when you're under pressure. So of course, it's very important in real life and even in the game, but it's hard to actually quantify. So yes. Now the next two we have are the two most important factors when it comes to dribbling. So first of all, we're going to start off with ball control. This is of course a technical attribute. It's one of the most technical as you can get, really, one of the most. And this accounts for 35% of dribbling. So this is the ability to control the ball when receiving it. So the higher your ball control is, the less likely the ball is to bounce away from you when controlling. So of course, this is associated with the player feeling comfortable with the ball. So like when the ball, binds to a play, as I said, the Hazards, the Messi, these kind of players are very good. Neymar's, that the ball sticks closely to their feet when they're dribbling. This is very important. Ball control really encompasses here. Dribbling is natural for them, and as I said, it counts for first touch and also dribbling. For example, it helps maximize the effectiveness of body range, no touch, dribbling, these such things, and it influences how well a player can keep possession of the ball essentially when opponents want to tackle them. So ball control is it's one of the most important attributes in football, really. As a fundamental, as a footballer, it can't really be unstated. And of course, the last one we have, and arguably the most important of dribbling is dribbling. So of course, this is another very technical attribute, and it accounts for 50% of dribbling, and this is the ability to carry the ball and pass the opponent. So of course, the higher the dribbling, the higher likelihood the player has of keeping better possession of the ball while dribbling. Because, of course, players with high dribbling, they'll just keep better possession of the ball. They'll keep the ball closer to them, similar to ball control, but yeah, they'll just keep the ball closer to them, and it'll just make it a lot harder for opponents to win the ball with them. Now, of course, this has no connection with receiving the ball. So this has, your first touch, etc. It has nothing to do with dribbling. That's ball control. So yes, just of course, factor this in. Do bear this in mind. This is just once you receive the ball, what you do with it, how effective you are at, maintaining, keeping the ball, and getting past players effectively. So yes. Now the next one we're going to be discussing is defending. Now again, some interesting finds we'll come to see. So yeah, let's get into this. So of course, this encompasses 5 attributes of interceptions, heading accuracy, defensive awareness, stand tackle, and slide tackle. The first one we're going to be discussing is interceptions. Interceptions are they're a mental attribute, and they account for 20% of defending. Now this is the ability to read the game and intercept passes. So it's those intelligent kind of defenders that don't need to be going in and start attacking. It's kind of like the Maldini quote: "If I have to make a tackle, I've already made a mistake." So yeah, it's kind of similar to that, and this applies more to AI controlled teammates rather than you controlling the players. Of course, it does help, but it's more to AI. Maybe your partner, centre back, etc., or defenders. So rather than the player you selected. So if you see a player stick out a leg or do something unexpected to prevent a pass, they'll likely have high interceptions. Next one is heading accuracy. Now this is a technical attribute that accounts for 10% of defending. So this is for either passing or shooting. So it is good for your centre backs. It's also of course good for attackers as well. Obviously, centre forward strikers, but it's very important for centre backs. Going up for corners, especially taller centre backs that want to maximise their height. So of course, this does 2 things. This affects the player's ability to get the head on the ball, and then how accurate that header actually is. So it applies to headed passes and headers on goal. So yes, bear this in mind. Now the next one we're going to be discussing is a very important one, arguably the most important when it comes to defending. Now this is defensive awareness. Now this is a technical attribute that accounts for 30% of defending, and this was actually formerly known as marking. And it kind of makes sense how defensively aware you are. Again, similar to the Maldini quote: "If I have to make a tackle, I've already made a mistake." You're just marking the player. So it's the ability to track and defend an opposing player. So, how close you can say to an opposing player, so attacker, etc., and stop them from getting across, pass, shot, etc. And also contributes to tracking runs, how well you can track a run. So air players will do this off the ball and when you're in control of a defender. And defensive awareness will also, impact how good they are at containing, how effective they are in containing. So yes, when you're holding A or X, how good they are at this, High defensive awareness will mean he'll stick well to the player and stick close to him. Low defensive awareness will mean he's probably will back off a bit and he won't stay as tightly marked to the player. Now the next one again is arguably the most important attribute when it comes to defending. This is partially what it means to be a defender. Now this is standing tackle. So this is another technical attribute that accounts for 30% of defending. Now again, I know you guys are going to get tired of me making this joke. It's not even a joke because it's real, but it links to the Maldini quote, if I have to make a tackle, I've already made a mistake. Now, let's say you make the mistake. This is how effective you are in making that tackle after the mistake. It's not always mistakes, so maybe he's done you in or whatever. So this is, as I said, the ability to time your standing tackle so that they win the ball rather than, giving away a foul. So this can also be defined as the ability to win the ball without causing a free kick by using your body strength. So being, shoulder to shoulder or by foot. So if you have low stand tackling, the player is more likely to misarm a challenge or kick the ball away. So yes, it's not what we really want. You want to win the ball back. So yes, of course, this really it's important for centre backs. Really, this is very important for centre backs. Of course, there are other positions where it can have some significance, but it's very, very important for centre backs to have high tackling, stand and slide, but specifically standing here. So of course, it can be risky if you have low stand tackling. Of course, if you have low stand tackling, it's very likely to lead to set pieces, corners, free kicks, etc., cards, but they will shut the attacker most of the time. And if you use carefully, the results are excellent. If you've got high stand tackling, you're in for a good treat as a defender. So in game, this also translates into being able to taunt opponents with shirt pulling. So there's a lot of this is a thing that I think a lot of people don't know. So taunting, shirt pulling, grabbing, etc., and other maybe not so fair moves without being caught by the referee. So yeah, it actually impacts how effective these things are. So the higher the tackling, the more effective these not so fair tactics are. So just bear that in mind. Another thing I don't think EA make clear, but yeah, it's probably for a reason, fair play, etc. Now the final attribute when it comes to defending is slide tackling. So of course this makes up 10% of tackling, and this measures, or defending, sorry, this makes up 10% of defending and technical attribute, and it measures a player's ability to time slide tackles so that they win the ball rather than giving away a foul. So similar to stand tackling, but it's not as important because you're not sliding as much as you are having to stand tackle. So yes. So of course, players with high tackling, as I said, both standing and slide, it just really makes up a good centre back. You really want high tackling overall. As I said, you're much less likely to give away set pieces, free kicks, fouls, and receive cards, and you're more likely to shut out the attacker, as I've said, and stop the attacker from doing what they need to do. So yes. And as I said, this also accounts for the taunting and not so fair moves. So yeah. Now the last category we have is physical, and I don't mean the physical as in the three initial attributes categories I meant. It's the thing. Why do EA Sports do this? Why do they just have this kind of overlap? Just make it easy for us. But yeah, of course, physical, very important attribute in this day and age. Especially the way the game's going as opposed to where it was, 20, 25, 30, etc. years ago. The physical aspect is very important these days. So of course this encompasses 4 attributes in jumping, stamina, strength, and aggression. Now the first one we're going to be discussing is jumping. This of course is a physical, they're all physical attributes, so yeah. But yes, jumping, this accounts for 5% of the physical attribute, which is interesting. So of course this is the ability of leaping from the surface for headers. So like others, this attribute is actually kind of useless without its other linking attributes. That's why it only accounts for 5%. So for example, to be very good in the air, you need good jumping as well as good strength and good aggression and good heading accuracy. So you can have 99 jumping, but if those other attributes aren't good, this jumping is kind of useless. So of course, height does have, it does help. Taller player makes, you don't have to jump as high, but of course, if you're a taller player and you can jump high, then mate, unstoppable essentially. So yeah, taller players don't need to have as high jumping, of course, in order to be as effective, but it helps. The next one we have stamina, of course, another physical attribute, and it counts for 25% of the physical category, which is, 25% of this physical space is quite significant. So of course this, it determines the rate at which players will tire during a game. It evaluates how tired players get as the match goes along and approaches half time or full time. So of course, it regenerates at half time. So yeah, that's just a little one. I'm sure some of you know, some of you may not know that. So of course, once your stamina is low, it does actually impact the performance. Also, it's responsible for, players getting injured. So if you want to risk starting a player with low stamina for a game, he's at much higher risk of getting injured. So of course, bear this in mind. It's a risk starting players with low stamina. And of course, if you're going in for a challenge and you have low stamina, it's more likely to get injured. Again, it's difficult to get this one because there maybe should be an attribute fitness or something, but I guess it's not as easy to factor in for EA as it may seem. Because just because your stamina is low doesn't mean you're more likely to get injured. I guess it kind of can, but yeah, that's more for another video. We're actually analyzing on what can they include, because yeah, and this isn't, of course, also this is not necessarily just in the last minutes of matches. This is across the whole match. So if you start off with low stamina, you're just as at much of a risk of being injured at the beginning and the end of the match. It also determines how quickly players recover between matches and the amount of time players can sprint before they slow down. So yeah, those players that sprint for a second and their stamina is already low, or the fitness bar, that bar is already low, they have low stamina. And players that take ages to recover after a match, low stamina. Vice versa, high stamina means you recover quickly and you could sprint for longer before getting tired. Now the next one we're going to be discussing, and the most important when it comes to the physical attribute, kind of self-explanatory again, physical. What do you think of when you think of physical? You think of strength. Strength, again, obviously it's a physical attribute that accounts for 50% of the physical attribute, yes. So this is the quality or state of being physically strong. So of course, higher strength means you're more likely to win physical challenges. So of course, this will decide how you cope with physical battles. So it's a vital area for anyone with defensive responsibilities. It's also a desirable attribute for at least one of your strikers. You want to have a strong striker that you can body defenders and just be that physical specimen, to give you a chance at 50-50s with defenders. Your Highlands, how they can just bully players. Those kind of strikers of the past that will just go in and bully defenders. Of course, it depends on the style of striker you like. Obviously, in this day and age, some people like the more slick false 9 kind of striker, but it is nice to have a nice strong physical striker. So yes, strength is very important. Now the final attribute we have is aggression. Of course, is another physical attribute that accounts for 20% of the physical category. Now this measures the frequency and force level of jostling and tackling. So it determines the player's power or will and commitment to a match. So just how second they're going to get, how much effort they're going to put into tackles, and these such things. So of course, a typical aggression based action is when you go shoulder to shoulder with a player against someone. Someone with high aggression has a higher likelihood to has the initiative to push the opponent strongly. So you're going to go in with full force when you're making a shoulder to shoulder, interaction or tackle. So yeah, of course, this is as far as your strength allows. If you are weak and you have high aggression, this doesn't mean you're going to be bodying strong players. It doesn't work like that. Of course, strength has to be factored in. That's why strength accounts for 50%, this accounts for 20. But it kind of maximizes your strength. Yeah. Yeah. So of course, this determines the winner of the challenge, obviously. And another critical moment for aggression is when when you're jumping. So of course, when you're jumping for a header, if you've got high aggression, you're much more likely to use your body and again maximize your strength in the air and outbody your opponent. So of course, if you manage to hit the ball with your head, great. If you don't, you space the other player so he can't perform the header correctly. So in this case, the aggression needs to work alongside jumping and strength. So as I said, these kind of things need to interlink together. So yes, that should be everything. So yes, we've gone through all the categories. Of course, there are 6 categories and we've gone through all of them. So yes, it's very interesting because I feel like there are a lot of these things that are not so much hidden by EA, but I think they are hidden. EA Sports don't make a lot of these things clear, and they don't make it clear how well some of these things link together and how ineffective some of these attributes are without others. So yes, and of course, if you do want me to go more in depth and maybe do some analysis, do some experiments with these to see the impact on field, on the pitch. If you want to see that, leave a like, leave a comment. And yeah, if you did enjoy the video, please do feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, etc. Follow. You know what to do. Of course, this video did take quite a long time in terms to do some research and do the research and get it all together. And yeah, But yeah, no, that should be everything. So nonetheless, I'm Delu, and thank you.